What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Operators Podcast, episode 57. We're here with a very special guest,
Cherene Aubert.
You might know her from Twitter, and her handle is
Cherene Aubert.
We're going to jump into a bunch of great stuff. We go through her history. She's a VP of digital right now. She's worked at some probably best-in-class brands. She comes from an agency we all love and respect. We go through hiring, what it means to actually be there when a company's growing from 7, 8, 9 plus figures. We talk about her biggest hire she's made this year. Anything else we covered that you think we should talk about?
We talked about remote work and why it's better than working in an office.
Yeah, she's a remote work purist like myself. So listen to the episode. If you enjoy it, give her a follow. We're plugging her throughout this. She's criminally underrated. I'm actually going to take a month off of Twitter. I'm pretty just sick of the internet right now. So if you're missing memes, unhinged behavior, you can go ahead and follow Chaurene. She'll be filling my space for a little bit. So thank you, everybody. And thank you to Fulfill, Sendlane, Northbeam, 3 SaaS tools I actually use that I do not consider evil. So thank you, everybody, for being here. What's up, everybody? I use Fulfill. Fulfill is my ERP, my order management software. It does EDI for me. So what do all those things mean? If you are a small Shopify merchant, you probably hook your Shopify up to a 3PL or a warehouse, or maybe you're running fulfillment yourself out of your garage. We did that at one point. Orders come in, orders go out pretty easy. Where it gets difficult is when you're tracking multiple inventory sources. So like different factories making the same stuff with different costs, different components coming in. That ends up being a pain for accounting. And then also different inventory sources going to customers. So if you have 3 warehouses and it's not just going to Shopify, it's going to Amazon, it's going to wholesale, it just ends up being a lot of different information to pass around. And how do you make sure that runs smoothly without just throwing bodies at the problem? That's what Fulfill solves. So it's an ERP. There's a couple ERPs in the industry. NetSuite is the big one, and ask anyone who's ever used NetSuite if they're happy, and they will say no. I am happy with Fulfill. We are using it. ERPs are a hard, messy business because it's so many different parties passing a lot of information, but it ends up being the nervous system of your entire company, right? Like if something fucks up on Amazon, I feel it because of Fulfill. So it's the ERP uniting everything. It also does EDI, right? So this is a little more technical, but Best Buy, Nordstrom's, all of these people, when they place orders, it's coming into your system via EDI, and nobody knows how that works. Like no 3PLs have it figured out. It is just an old archaic system that I naively thought would take a week to set up, but no, it can take months to set up and actually test that it's working perfectly. Fulfill does all that. It sets up EDI integrations and then it stays with Fulfill. So you can switch warehouses, you can switch inventory sources without having to redo EDI integrations, which is the death of a lot of companies. So if you're shipping stuff to people from multiple locations, eventually you'll need an ERP. I use Fulfill and I've been happy with it. They're a sponsor of the podcast. All 3 sponsors I personally use. So interact with Ridge and you will see how we're using these sponsors. So thank you, Fulfill. Talk to you later. Quick name, who you are, why you're here, what are you working on, which one of us you like the most, which one you like the least. Jason won't be joining, so feel free to pick on him as much as you want.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. I'm Chaurene. I'm the VP of Ecom at ILIA Beauty. I'm the godmother of e-commerce. I'm the queen of D2C. I have the best hair in the D2C game. My Twitter game goes really hard. I'm criminally underfollowed. Maybe we can change that today. What was the question?
No, you covered it. I do think you're underfollowed. I think some of us are overfollowed, like myself. And I don't know who is following me. I'm actually going to probably take a month off of Twitter, dude, because like it stopped bringing me joy. But if you're like, oh, I can't miss Sean's memes, I need someone who can spit the same level of fire. Follow Chaurene. She's got a criminally underfollowed account, and this is the plug.
Yes, the meme game is strong. And who's my favorite? That's really tough. I'm going to have to decide at the end.
I think you got to say Jason's at least your least favorite.
Yeah.
Because he's not
Okay.
here. That's
Since
easy.
he's not here to defend himself.
Jason's the only one of you that I've met in person.
Oh, no
So-
kidding. That's great.
We
Yeah.
should do superlatives instead. What is the first word that comes to mind when you think of each of the four people on the pod?
Oh gosh, that's really good. Jason.
I'm putting you on the spot.
I think Jason. Oh man, there's more than one word. I want to start with Mike because I feel like that's the easiest.
Oh, okay.
I just feel like
on
Mike-
the easiest one?
Yeah, just a good, just a good person.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. What about Sean?
Sean, can I use more than one
Not
word?
a good person.
Are they kid friendly? They need to be kid friendly. This is a family show. Actually, it's really not a family show, but
Sean, maneuvering. I mean, just the way you've maneuvered your way to the top in such an interesting, fast fashion is really
Sean Fast Fashion Frank.
fast.
Yeah.
So I'm subconsciously thinking of Shop Jean when I say fast fashion.
That is so good.
Yeah, Cherene is some of my deep, dark, old history. I started at a very weird e-com company back in the day, but we'll get to all of us. I think we should really just dive in and talk about
Yeah.
you've had an amazing career at some really top tier brands. Maybe the most controversial decision to leave Bobby. Are we going to talk about that today, or maybe you want to tell us like what's going on at ILIA Beauty? Why should we be paying attention?
Yeah, I mean, we can jump into either one. Bobby was incredible. The brand, I joined at 7 figures. We grew to 9 in the first 2 years of the business. In the third year, we acquired our own manufacturing and a competitor. And I saw that business through Series B and C and supported the C raise and the acquisition effort. And why did I leave? That business was an absolute like rocket ship. It was growing so incredibly fast, faster than they could keep up with their demand, which is why we had to invest in manufacturing for growth. And it's like the growth role is so ambiguous. Like what is ahead of growth? What do they do in that business? Growing was acquiring manufacturing. And for maybe like a good 9 months, my role was slowing down the growth of the business and like pulling down all the demand generation levers and trying to create like attrition. And we had that insane growth without acquiring customers for like 9 months. So that's how much demand that business was driving. And in order to produce infant formula out of a facility, it's such a highly regulated product that it would take a really long time to get that product off the line to continue to capture all the demand that we were building up. And while it was like really exciting and fun and a great time to be there, I was like, I need to like grow a business without constraints. And so the opportunity at ILIA opened up. I've been here for maybe 8 months. It's interesting. It's like the next stage of growth that Bobby was on track for. You know, Bobby had done a lot of fundraising. They're, you know, just like every brand on a path to exit. I came in at ILIA, you know, post 9 figures, post acquisition. And it's like kind of a continuation of where I left off of like, how do we now set the foundation for the next stage of growth for the business? And like, how do you bring like a level of sophistication to a company that's already gone through so much growth and through so much change, and they're like in this next phase of their evolution. So that's what I'm doing now. Like this year for me is like structuring, restructuring, laying the foundation and getting the business in a place, like my business in a place for the next, you know, several years of growth.
Man, I wouldn't have left Bobby. It sounds like it was so easy to acquire customers. I'm like, I can't imagine what that was like. Obviously, it was the right choice to you, but I'm just hearing that it's so foreign because of how much I have to spend on marketing to sell these wallets.
You know what it is? It's like a good illustration of like the grass is always greener. You know, no matter where you are, no matter how well it's going, there are problems and things that are not fun about it. Because you would think like, oh, what an awesome problem to have, that, you know, like you have so much demand that you can't keep up. And it's like, well, that's actually frustrating, right? Like things are breaking and you like want to be able to grow more than you can. And so just as a reminder to everybody, this is why there is no such thing as quote unquote making it, because no matter how your circumstances change, there will still be parts that you'll look at somebody else's business or parts of your own business and be like, oh man, it would just be great if it was a little bit more like this or like that.
Well, I will say the grass was greener. Like,
oh, she found it. She found the greenest grass. Okay, let's listen to this.
Grass. I found the greenest grass. Like I'm like every day I wake up and I'm like, I made the right choice. Like I love what I'm doing. It's fun and I'm having fun doing it. And I love the industry. And like, I like to grow personally. I like to reach like new levels of growth and new challenges. And like you said, like the demand was there, that the challenge was not demand generation or demand capture. Like, yeah, sure. In the beginning, like it was a challenge to grow that business that quickly, but so much of it was like the incredible business model. Like think about it. There's a capped market size and it's a parade category for infant formula. So they're coming in and out and they have to have a baby and they have to be drinking formula. So like it's a really small TAM comparable to maybe, you know, all of us today in the businesses that we're at today. And so you're retelling the same story to a bunch of new people coming into the category for the first time. But if they have a baby and if the baby needs formula, then there's two decisions that are made. The parent makes a decision on like, do I like this brand and do I like the products and what they stand for? And then the baby makes a decision. And if the baby decides that its body can accept the formula, you have that customer for that first year, and they consume more. And so their AOV grows. So you have a really low customer acquisition. You have a really, really high LTV to CAC on those customers. And so the business model grew the business model, the gap in the market, there was insane product market fit. And then there was a brand that hadn't existed before. This brand was founded by mothers. So they were able to speak to the customer in a way that no other brand had. So they had all three and it was amazing. Like, I think I learned so much when I was there. Like I came from an agency background, came from a performance background. I was like, show me the numbers. Nothing else matters. And I came into this brand that was founded by Airbnb execs. And like, they're a very design and vision driven culture. And at first I was like going insane. I'm like, do you guys care? Do you guys care about these numbers? Like, does anyone care about like how amazing these metrics are? And they're like, we care about the customer. I'm like, what are you talking about? But like, that was like a complete like paradigm shift for me on like the genius of understanding like what your customer needs and wants, which cannot be replicated. Like anyone can start any business, but like no one can speak to the customer as much as someone who like actually cares about what the customer is going through. And so like that completely changed my perspective. Like we would do things that didn't scale. Like we had like this mantra, like do things that don't scale. Like we would, you know, Uber cans of formula to parents who like ran out. And it was like such a, you know, it's on paper, it's like so dumb. Like the cost of Ubering a can of formula to a customer, like you can't do that. That's not scalable. That would turn into like this brand. Like I love them. I will die for them. I'm going to get a tattoo for them. I'm going to tell all my friends. Like our number one acquisition source in post-purchase survey data was referral, word of mouth referral. It's amazing. Like that time at that company changed my perspective and made me like a better marketer, better business leader, better understander of like how to actually grow a brand and not just grow sales. But it's like I learned and I did what I needed to do when I was there, and I wanted to apply it to a bigger challenge and a bigger market and have a bigger TAM to play with. Like I want to grow, I want to play and like have fun and experiment. And there were, you know, we did have like 2 formula brands, but how much can you tell the same story to new customers over and over again? And it's like, you know, no one is perfect at everything, but I'm like, I wanted a new challenge. And so like, this is really fun for me. And I think that's what, you know, it's like not about achievement. It's about how much do you actually like your life. So the grass is green right now.
So Cherene, you said something at the beginning there. You said it was a parade style brand.
Parade category.
What can you like? I've never heard that before. What's a parade?
I hadn't either, but it's a great term. Yeah, break that down.
Yeah.
Can you educate
it's like
the dummies, which is us?
Yeah. A parade category is like people enter and exit the category. So they're like walking in and out of the category. So it's like you only have a baby that's under 1 year old for a certain period of your life, and then it's no longer applicable. And there's always people entering and there's always people exiting.
So like engagement rings would be another example of a parade category, right?
Which one, Mike?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I said like engagement rings would be like another example of this. It's a really interesting idea. And, for a short period of time, about 8 years, I worked with college students, and I had a similar kind of tension of like, working on a college campus is like kind of like a parade category in and of itself, that you kind of figure out, okay, here's the conversations I have with a freshman. And then every year there's another group of freshmen, but you're having the same conversation over and over again.
Yep. Most of the baby category, like wedding category, divorce category. I don't know. Like what are these like stage of life?
So you mentioned like the focus on customer, which I think is great. Really too often people think about how do I make my business successful? How do I make money? They think less about how do I serve the customer, which is really what we're getting paid to do. And you mentioned them doing some kind of like unreasonable hospitality type things for people, like the Ubering formula to people. What's one takeaway you had, since that was so different from your background? What's one thing that is different about your approach now, having been in that culture for a while?
It's like when you go through your experiences and then you try and say them out loud, like they almost sound so simple that it sounds like stupid or like a cliche. But what I'm bringing with me now is like, there really has to be a balance of like performance and brand. Like there's always this like war between performance and brand, or like how do you truly build something for the customer experience, or like how do you become a customer first or customer obsessed brand? Like, again, it's a cliche, like everyone says it, but like I have internalized it and seen this is another word that's like, oh, every VC loves this word, flywheel. It's truly a flywheel. Like when you can get people to love your brand and talk about it, the thing just like snowballs out of control. But I think it's trying to remember, like, there's all these things all these tactics that everyone knows, and everyone's kind of like following the same tactical playbook. And those tactics may change at like different stage and size of business, and everyone can replicate them and learn them. But it's like, what do our customers actually care about, and like the value that we bring and the position that we hold in the market? And how can we like clearly communicate that and cut through the noise of all the other brands? And like, how do we as a company understand who we are to our customers? Because like everyone's just like everyone has their own ideas, and like sometimes you have a good intuition. But one of the things that I really dug into at my time at Bobby that I'm now bringing to ILIA was, I led our data and insights team there. And not only did we have like all of the data infrastructure and BI to support all of the functions of the business and serve them all data, but we also led a lot of the brand growth studies and market studies, and like, how do we bring real insights to the people that are deploying the capital and the investments to help them understand, like, from a consumer standpoint, like what people actually care about. Because you can't always quantify like what people care about, but you can get pretty close with studies. So like, that's what now we're trying to implement here. And like, how do we like truly understand the brand, the market, and the consumer?
Did you have ways to measure, measure beyond post-purchase, that investment in like that customer obsession? So like post-purchase survey, word of mouth, I think like that makes sense. But did you find other either leading or lagging indicators that were like, holy hell, this is actually worth the money and the time? Because I get that question a lot. Just like, what's the ROI of like obscene customer service?
There's two, and it's probably not, you're not able to tie it back as closely to like as granularly to like customer service or like this marketing campaign. But the first is like any business can start measuring today is your organic acquisition, or like what is the revenue that you're getting without having to pay for it. And like, it's so difficult in like attribution is such a hard puzzle to solve, but we literally turned off all of our advertising and we're still getting customers. And that's like an indicator that you have a brand that people care about, or that you've built like an organic acquisition engine that can sustain the growth of the business without you having to pay for it. So that's one. And we very religiously tracked organic versus paid acquisition. Even though like there's all these attribution questions, like we at least set a baseline. We're like, on a baseline, our organic acquisition cost is this, our paid acquisition cost is this, our blended CAC is this, and we measured. But then we also started doing these brand trackers, which were like dipsticks, and the intention was to do them at like once a year or twice a year to actually measure and survey the market, in market consumers who may or may not have awareness of your brand, who may or may not have purchased from your brand, who are just in market, to get data around what is our percentage of brand awareness compared to our competitors. Of those people that are aware of us, what is their conversion into considering us, and what is their conversion into actual purchase? So we're able to just like measure our position in the market. And there's like a ton of tools to do that, like that are less expensive than actually doing like market studies.
I have a couple specific questions. So I'm going to kind of run us through some of them. You come from the agency background. I come from an agency background. And my first question is, would you hire your old agency? And if you, and regardless of what you say, my next question is, what is like probably the biggest skill you took out of the agency world into two, I mean, I'm going to call them world-class brands, right? Like I think Bobby crushed it with growth. And ILIA, go on their Instagram, one of the most beautiful brands I've ever looked at, right? So you're at two world-class brands now. What did you actually take out of the agency world that helped you be successful in those?
Really good questions. I'm insane. So I worked at 3 agencies and actually like spent a good chunk of my career at an agency, like actually growing into leadership positions and like building and developing agency teams at scale. And what that requires is you're taking a bunch of junior people who might be in their first or second job ever and teaching them how to work, and then teaching them how to market, and teaching them how to have like 10 bosses, and try not to piss all of them off every day, which is really hard. Like, how do you train a junior person to do that? It's through like systems, operational systems, and like procedures. So I learned how to operate teams and work very quickly. And I think coming in-house, it's like, whoa, you guys work at a different pace. Like, what do you mean you can't do this like tomorrow? Like, what else are you doing right now? It's a completely different pace of work. But setting the operational like systems for people and how people work together is the hardest thing that a brand side company like doesn't know how to solve, or an agency like needs to know how to solve in order to function. So that was like a big benefit for me. Being client facing was like an insanely huge benefit for me, because when you come in house, you just have everyone as your client, except you can't like hang up the phone and see them next week. You like have to see them again tomorrow. And so it's like, how do you build influence with all the people in an organization? How do you present your ideas? How do you not, you can't be nervous like when you're presenting a proposal, like having an understanding of like how businesses make decisions and like how to present your ideas. And then just being exposed to so many businesses. I've probably seen the inside of over 100 businesses and like have driven growth for businesses at different sizes and scales and categories. And the pattern recognition thing becomes like ingrained in you, especially at, Common Thread Collective, where legends like Taylor Holiday, Andrew Ferris, Aaron Orndorff. They had the honor of working with me, of course. But we had like a 300 like plus, Taylor built this tool Statless, and it was like 300 plus ecom businesses data set where like anyone can just go in and like analyze a business, and you can quickly understand like where are the gaps in that business? How do you solve them? We were running these like great, pretty sophisticated like revenue growth models for our clients on the growth strategy side. So like that turned me into like that actually helped me identify winning businesses. I was like, okay, like what are their margins look like? What is their LTV growth over, first order AOV? Like, does this business actually have a chance of success? Like, how much are they spending in advertising compared to other businesses? Like, all of these KPIs that like maybe an investor would look at, like we had exposure to like this massive data set. So that like helped me pick winning brands as I moved through my career. And then I have hired agencies that I've worked for before. So shortly after I joined Bobby, I hired Common Thread Collective to build like our retention flows. And I had a really good partner there leading retention. And I ended up actually hiring her, and Taylor forgave me, surprisingly. So there's that. And there's another agency that I've worked for, but the way that I view agency is like, it's oftentimes a temporary resource that you add in to close a gap or to like build something that your internal team doesn't have capacity to build until you can like fill that gap or finish the project.
No, yeah. I've also stolen people from Common Thread, and Taylor has forgiven me, but more slowly than probably I would have liked. So if anyone's listening, don't steal any employees from Common Thread Collective. I want to echo.
It.
Yeah, I want to echo the sentiment of agencies being the pace of work being so frantic. Like my agency days, I mean, nobody works harder than a 22-year-old who doesn't know marketing at a marketing agency. Like you just get yelled at so much, and you have to put in so many hours to make it work. So you've been at companies from 7 figures to 9 figures and rapid growth inside of there, and you come from an agency before that. Was all of that done remotely? Like was it a remote workforce, or like when did the switch happen, and are you still remote to this day?
Yeah, still remote. I was always at agencies that had some kind of like hybrid element, like where there was an office and then we would have like, being in ecom, and using technology, like brands or these agencies were able to like support a remote infrastructure more easily before COVID. So like I worked hybrid until COVID, and then we went fully remote at Common Thread Collective. We're fully remote now, but we at ILIA, we have a headquarters that's like pretty close to my home. And there's like the majority of people are in Southern California. So like getting together is pretty easy, but it is difficult to operate teams of people in a remote world for sure.
Yeah, because you just talked about the importance of like building like large, high performing teams and managing them. And it's amazing to do that in the agency world. Like, we do that at Ridge, but like everyone has one singular mission. But dude, I remember like structuring an agency is so hard because it's like, do you have pods of people who work on the same projects together, or do you have random people who are randomly assigned, and then like getting them all to do their work? And that does sound hard, but I mean, people have made it work in the remote space. So would you ever go back into an office, or do you think it's not even needed? Because you've seen 100% year-over-year growth, and now you've seen 9-figure plus acquired brand doing remote well. Like, do you think there's any value in that? I'm trying to get some more allies to be remote first positive, unlike these two guys.
Yeah. I feel like I saw a quote somewhere that was like, if you need to be in office to work, it's because the problem is like you haven't set the structure for the team to like work efficiently together in a way that is like effective. But that's true and false, maybe. I like having the option, but not being required I have small kids, and like, it's important for me to be like, if I need to go to their school, if I need to pick them up, if there's something going on, like to have the flexibility. And, I also like, I think back on it and I'm like, did we even work when we were in an office? Like we just talked all day long, and then we went to coffee, and then we went to lunch, and I'm like, and we started and ended like at reasonable hours. I'm like, I work way more now, and get actual stuff done. But I think the thing that's like true between agency and in-house is, depending on this, again, size and scale of business, you need to keep rewriting the playbook on how people work together. Cause what works at, 10 to 50 million is not going to work at like 50 to 100. And what worked then is not going to work at 100 plus. You need to like keep, redefining the process at different scales of business. Same with agency. Like it's really easy to operate an agency of 5 people, but when it becomes 150 people, like you need to change the org structure, and like pods might be more efficient than just having like random floaters. It's something that I don't know if people are like fully conscious of, that you have to like continue to solve for. Like you can't just not solve for how people work together. That's like the number one, I guess, thing that's holding businesses back, is like your people need to kind of sometimes be told how to work together, or like someone needs to be sitting down and solving how people work together.
I think that gets in the whole debate, because we've talked about this a lot. I think one of the factors that gets talked about too little is that it depends on the team, depends on what the team's doing. It depends on the personalities on the team. Turns out a bunch of people work different ways from each other. And often when people build teams, they think too much about skill sets and not enough about fit. And I'm starting to lean the other way, that like skill sets are kind of fungible and they can be learned and taught. And if it's a really capable person, they can do a lot of different things. But fit is not as fungible. Like fit actually matters. Personalities, like you're saying, certain personality types don't work well together, or they work better together when it's digital interaction than they do in person, or vice versa, or whatever. And this is where culture becomes so important. You have to, as the leader, have like a really coherent vision of what you're trying to build. And so like we have a really strong in-person culture and it works great. And I don't think it's because we haven't defined things. I think it's more because the way that the things that we are trying to do is defined. We do it really well in person, and we're not as good at it digitally. And maybe that's a shortcoming of me as a leader or whatever, but we've got a pretty good track record of doing it in person. But we also built the team around that, having kind of this hybrid, model with a real emphasis on it in person.
What's up, everybody? I use Sendlane for all of my email needs. They have SMS, they have reviews, they have all that stuff. But the big, scary, hard thing to do is to switch from Klaviyo to Sendlane. And I'm telling you, I did it. They just rolled out a new feature where you do not have to pay for Sendlane until you're up live sending emails on Klaviyo, essentially de-risking the change off period, right? We kept Klaviyo up and live for probably 3 months during that transition. And now you can do that. You can move at your leisure, make sure things are set up and working, make sure they have the features you want, and only start paying when you're actually fully live on Sendlane. So if you're sick of the Klaviyo monopoly, if you're sick of rates going up and bad customer service and everything that Klaviyo has been doing for about fucking 5 years, check out Sendlane. They are the modern, fast-moving email startup. So e-commerce focused, hyper focused on winning over Shopify customers, and they know what makes us money on email for Shopify. So check them out. Sendlane, I use them. If you got an email from me, it's coming from Sendlane.
One of the things that we talked about just as we were kind of getting ready for the episode that I'd love to talk about, I mean, obviously growth, you've been a part of a lot of growth, both on the agency side and in-house. How do you think about growth at scale? And specifically, how do you think about producing high quality growth, not driven by just promotions or cutting price, but how do you generate really high quality, sustainable growth? Would love to hear your thoughts and the entire group's thoughts on that question.
It's a really good question. I think it's like the right question that I think brands that have reached a certain size and scale start asking themselves. It's like, you can grow by discounting. You can grow your gross sales by discounting. But sometimes not discounting actually drives a higher net sales at a lower gross sales. So it's like, how do you focus on getting full price sales? And what does it mean to actually be a brand that can convince consumers to pay full price and still grow? And I think like that's a big miss for some of these smaller brands. And maybe it's like a good way to get to a certain size and scale. But it's like a toilet bowl. Like once you start going down that discount toilet bowl, like it's really hard to climb out of it. And
do you think that's conditioning? Is that just out of curiosity? Do you think that's because you condition customers, or more because it just culturally, organizationally, it becomes too easy to kind of hit that lever once you've started to hit it?
Or is it comps? Is it like year over year comping that becomes the problem, right?
Yeah, I think it's like, I think I would ask a question back to it on like, what causes someone to buy something full price? Someone buys something full price because they believe that the brand is worth paying full price for. And so how do you build a brand that makes people believe that they should pay full price for it? And that's probably where I would start. It's like, how do you get the maximum value and price for the products that you're selling? And if you're constantly discounting, why would they? You know what I mean? So part of it is like, you hear a lot of people saying like, oh, discounting is brand dilutive. It is because like, it's like there's a ton of brands that have done this and gone down that path, and it's been like really hard to recover from it. And then consumers really don't, like Bed Bath and Beyond, like, you get a 20%, $20 off coupon every day. Why would you ever? Yeah. So I think there's like a few.
Oh, sorry. I was going to point out JCPenney's. They started at 70%, then 80, and then 90. And it's like, you can never go back, but keep going.
No, yeah, that's true. And I think if I were to say like, what are the levers that you could play with that drive growth without using discounting? It's like going back to that organic acquisition. Like, how do you build a baseline of like not paying for new customers every time you acquire them? How do you think about growth through other ways, like new products or new like channel distribution? And then pricing and offers is definitely like a category of growth. So it's like, instead of a discount, something that's like major in beauty is a gift with purchase. And a gift with purchase is like all COGS, and COGS is way cheaper than a discount. And so
this is worth super focusing on. Everybody discounts. Some people do it in much more, I think, clever ways. I'll give a great example here. My category, Yeti discounts. Nobody thinks about Yeti as discounting. Like you'll very rarely, I mean, they probably tell you they never do, but the way they do it is so clever. Sean, you know how they discount, right? How do you think they discount? You're the Yeti expert.
Well, I've actually seen them start to just do hard markdowns on discontinued colors. They will
do that. There's another way they do it. They do it all the time, and it's hidden. Can you guys guess what it is?
Rebate?
Nope.
No.
Free customization. They give away the laser engraving. The cup goes at full price. They give away the laser engraving. And it's such a great one because they're using a kind of supply chain manufacturing capability. And it is a value add. It's basically a free gift with purchase is kind of the way that they frame it. And usually they charge, I don't know if it's $5 or $10, but so they are discounting, and it's like probably about a 15% discount. And they roll it out, I think, every holiday, and we'll run it for weeks. So like if you actually look at their calendar, they're doing a pretty significant portion of the calendar. They're running a discount. They're just doing it in a way that doesn't feel brand dilutive at all. And the thing that I love about it is it is this free gift with purchase, but it's also a free gift with purchase where operational excellence has earned them the right to be able to do it in a way that doesn't seem dilutive at all. So I'm really I have a lot of admiration for it, obviously, when it's done really well. It's great when you have excellent competitors, but I think it's a great point that the laziest way to discount, obviously, is to just say this thing is cheaper. But there's a lot of ways that you can induce somebody, to have a bias to action by providing more value. And the more capabilities you have as an organization, the more options and levers you have that you can pull.
Yeah, I want to point to, is your company designed to actually discount? So, there's companies who only sell one thing. And I'm going to talk about, a past version of Ridge or maybe Bobby or Allbirds, right? Like if Allbirds start discounting black sneakers, how do you come back from that? Right? Like it's like, okay, the sneakers are $100, now they're 85, right? And then you get these customers in and now you've just devalued your only asset, right? Where, Gucci, you can buy stuff on markdown, right? And it's because it's a fashion nature of the business where like they their business is designed in a way that they can actually discount because of this rapid iteration of newness and limited editions and whatever, right? Like Nike's a great example where you could go to a Foot Locker or whatever and you can get a pair of Nikes on your feet for $45, or you can spend $450 on the hottest release, right? And they've built this business in a fractured way to actually take advantage of that. And most D2C brands haven't. Most of us are selling one thing and sales start to go down. So you're like, well, I'll start just lowering the price until I get those sales to go back up. And that is what will end up killing the brand. It is the toilet bowl analogy you hit us with. It is your circle in the drain.
It's so true. And it's interesting, like, even looking at Bobby versus ILIA or like different categories, like you said, it goes back to that customer and what do they want? Like at Bobby, we learned that we could discount our trial and every other order would be full price because the biggest barrier was for the parent to like want to try the formula. And so we were like, let's do a buy one, get one on the trial. And that trial did more for growth than any other like marketing lever. Like we had a whole squad where every 2 weeks we would like do offer testing on that trial and like try to understand like how do we use that as a lever for acquisition and capture all the full price sales on the back end after that first order. And then in beauty, it's so fascinating. They do these like holiday gift sets where it's like you get people to order more, but you put an amazing incentive on it and it's in a special pretty box and it's like once a year. And like that, it's not like 50% off all of our site. It's like, these are amazing holiday gift sets and like people go wild for them. So it's like, there's a version of that for every brand.
So you made this distinction and I think this is worth calling out as well. If you have to discount to get returning customers to buy, that's a bright red flag, right? Like they must not really love your product. If it's like, yeah, I've used it and I would buy more of it, but only if it was cheaper. And this is really the problem that discounting, in my mind, you nailed it. Like getting someone who's never used your product before to say, I'm willing to put down the money to try it, I think makes a lot of sense. The problem is it's very difficult to compartmentalize that, right? And to truly only impact new customers. That whenever you discount, inevitably what you end up doing is passing that discount along to a lot of returning customers that would have been happy to pay full price, but now they're paying less. And so in effect, all of the savings that you gave to returning customers that you didn't have to stacks on top of your customer acquisition cost for your new customers. So when you can find a way to partition it out the way that you just mentioned, that's really clever because that's really who you're trying to convert, people who don't know how the quality of your product. I'm on the board of a consumable company. It's a protein bar company that I think is really, really promising. But like the phrase that we're using is it's just bars and mouth. Like we've got to get more people to try it because it's a great product, but nobody knows it's a great product until they've tried it. And how, it's kind of a chicken or the egg. How do you get somebody to buy something if they don't know if it tastes great? And they don't know if it tastes great until they put it in their mouth, which you can't do unless you own it. So anyway, it's a great point. And I think when people can be thoughtful about segmenting their users and their offers where they're really actually discounting towards the group that needs to experience their product, that's usually when it's the most effective.
Mike, what's the brand? I haven't heard about this.
Yeah, it's a company called Kai's Bar, and they're actually based locally. The founder's a great guy. It's funny, I knew about the company, and then I finally met with him, and I found out he grew up across the street from me, and I didn't know because he's like 7 or 8 years younger than I am. But anyway, great company. And it's a great product, but there's a really interesting idea. I think Balaji on Twitter is the first person that I saw express this idea, and I'll map it to brands. That in any message, there's two variables. There's the quality of the message, and then the quality of distribution. And so sometimes you get a low quality message, but great quality distribution. I mean, a lot of legacy media probably fits into this category right now. Not particularly great content, but they've still got the best distribution network. Sometimes you have the inverse problem. You have great content, but you've got low quality of distribution. And for brands, that's the question. When you know that you have a great product, but you've got to make more people aware, and you don't have great quality of distribution, how do you thoughtfully use discounting to start to increase the quality of distribution? And that was certainly part of our problem. We knew that when people experienced our product, that they would be like, wait a second, this is as good, better than Hydro Flask. And wait, it's $20 less. Like, the value proposition was so obvious, but you had to touch it. You had to use it once or twice to really get it. And so we really early on realized, man, we've got to take a bottles and hands approach. We just have to get more of this out there. We have to have more people experiencing this. And we had to get to some kind of a critical mass where people started to understand the level of the quality of the product. And I think our discounting started, we did a lot more early on, and we've done less and less as time has gone on. But a lot of that is because the quality of distribution has grown and we don't need to as much anymore.
Such a good point, Mike, because I am like a die-hard, loyal, simple, modern customer. Like, once I got that like kids bottle, I was like, there's no other kids bottle for our household. And these kids lose them like every day. So I'm like, we have like an insane amount of them, but never would I think I need to buy this on discount. I'm like, this is like, there's no other bottle. They love it.
Man, well, yeah, you thought you were buying a water bottle. You were really getting into a subscription for kids' water bottles. You just didn't.
Mike, you should do kids' shoes, because when I was a kid, I'd lose my shoes like every goddamn day. So,
well, it's honestly, it's kind of this doesn't have to do with this discussion, but it's like, it's one of the problems we were worried about at first. Is like, these things last forever, guys. Like, you can get one of these and use it for like 5 or 10 years. And we're like, man, are we just going to run out of people buying these? Like, how many of these things can sell? What we didn't realize is that, like, people are going to end up having 20 or 40 of these at their house. And so it didn't matter that they lasted forever.
It's the beauty of things with parts, you lose a part and you need another one.
Totally. And I was going to say, in the alcohol industry, they say sips to lips, right? Like, you have to get sips to lips. You have to get bars to bites, Mike. That's for your new thing. You got to get bars to bites. That's
exactly right. And I do think, so another example of this that we talked about, road shows in Costco can be an example of this. Obviously, like, that's not what's going on with Lomi, but it's kind of like that. With this company I was just talking about, Kais Bars, it's literally that. They literally are out there handing out sampling. And interestingly, so like, if you think about it, like, that's a form of discounting. You're giving away value for free, but it doesn't feel brand dilutive at all that somebody's handing you a free sample. And as we've kind of looked at all the different channels, to me, growing that business and club is like the most obvious way to do it, simply for the reason you just said, Sean. It's the easiest to get, bars to lips and to apply kind of discounting to help make it happen in a way that doesn't in any way dilute the brand.
That was how Kind Bar just absolutely exploded, was just in grocery store sampling, like little bites, right? It's like not the whole bar, but it's like, here, try it. It's the Costco sampling thing. So many brands are built that way.
I'm trying to like standardize the lingo now. So how about it's bites on bars? That's what you're trying to get, Mike. In your next board meeting, you got to say, guys, we got to get bites on bars.
Listen, you're the next Ogilvy. I think after the wallet phase, we need a copywriting phase of your career.
Yes,
dude. I'm believe it or not, a great copywriter. And actually, you guys just, when we were talking about discounting, I took down an idea that we're going to run as an ad now. And it's I would actually pay more money for this product. And like, that's just the ad concept. They'll go out there. We have a team that'll shoot it. But because when you were talking about, Bobby and, having this organic CAC and like having people come back after they try it, there's no need to discount there. I think one, it's like, look, it's a product you're going to have to buy a lot of. It's a product that has like a built-in almost subscription-like nature to it. Like, I don't think you want to be changing your kids' formula all the time or your makeup all the time. Like, these are products with like built-in, like, longevity to them. And instead of discounting, I think there's an ad unit there to take the exact opposite approach. It's like, hey, look, if they doubled the price, I'd still buy this, and explain why. So I'll let you guys know how that ad goes. My next question, I don't know if anyone has any other natural points of conversation. My next question would be, what is the most important hire you've made this year? Because your company's probably, ILIA is where Ridge, I think, wants to be in a year or 2 years. Like, I don't think the revenue numbers are public, but I think it's a big fucking business and it's crushing it. So like, what's a hire you've made recently that you're like, oh yeah, I can't imagine my life before that?
Yep. It's an easy one. Like I hired a director of digital product and e-commerce, and I came into a very slim, lean, agile team. Like almost like I was like floored at how slim the team was with how much scale the company had been doing. And so I was like, I just need like a right hand to own our tech and our e-com team. And, he's great, comes from like a digital product background. His name is Alex. Don't poach him, anybody. But he's put in like, one of the things that like my vision for this role was like someone to come in and like systematize the way that we're operating our site. Cause it was just like a complete like free for all. So we, digital product people learn like all these prioritization frameworks. They understand how to like synthesize things for developers. They understand how to synthesize things for cross-functional stakeholders. So like the keeper of the castle and like making sure that we're just like not any like willy-nilly idea that someone has turns into like a big dev project. Right. And it's interesting that like the team didn't have some of that in place before, but it's like been game changing. And so now we're trying to like ruthlessly prioritize with effort and impact. Like, why are we doing this thing? Is it because someone thought it was a good idea? There's all these frameworks to help you rank, score ideas, to nicely tell people which ideas are better and which ones aren't. And like, what's the effort? What's the impact? How easy it is it? How confident are we that it's going to make the change that we think? And some of those principles have really like helped us be more rigorous in the work that we're doing.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Operator's Northbeam ad unit. So 30 seconds, I'm going to tell you all about how if you have any problems with Northbeam, you can directly message Austin, the CEO. He is there. He will set up your ad account. He will make your bet. He'll give you cookies. Really, they have a dedicated team of people, probably 30, 40, 50 reps at this point, who will make sure Northbeam is working correctly and functioning so you can get amazing data out of this ecosystem. They will be more hands-on than any meta rep will ever be, and they're going to help you understand where your ad dollars are best spent, best positioned, and which ads are working. My team works with the Northbeam team literally every day. They're in my Slack. Maybe you don't get the same level of support as an operator, but they will be there to make sure it's working. And if you're not happy at all, just email Austin. He will take care of you. We use Northbeam every day. It's a benchmarking tool. It's super helpful for forecasting, daily pacing, inter-hour pacing. So we can see like if we just launched an ad in 2 hours, if it's working or not. That's what Northbeam does for us. So thank you, Northbeam, for the support. I'm customer probably number one. So thank you so much.
Well, one thing to add regarding Northbeam, because we just went through a contract renewal with them on their specifically on the MMM. And we got a pretty sweetheart deal, and I expect them to come back to us and raise our price, and they kind of deserve it. I was like, let me reach out to the team, and see how it's going, right? Because I'm not in the day to day. I get feedback, and the team was like, they have improved the MMM so much since we started it that they were like, we should definitely pay for this increase. So. And my team hates every agency and most SaaS. The only person that hates SaaS, the only more than my team is Sean, Frank. But yeah, I mean, they came to us. They're like, hey, you guys got the sweetheart deal. We were one of the first MMM clients. And I was very, very pleased when my team was like, it's really working well for us. So that's my little MMM plug.
So anybody listening to this that is not an executive or wants to become a better executive, I just want to pull out one thing that she said that was really key. Executives are very good at identifying the high leverage points in the business and focusing their time and attention and resources towards those things. 95% of the things going on in your business, they matter. Somebody should do them, but executives shouldn't be worried about them. Executives should focus their attention and be funneling it towards where are the things where I can have asymmetric upside, where I can have a lot of leverage that if this project goes our way, and I don't think it's a coincidence that you're saying that, because at scale, it becomes even more obvious. Like there's so many things where it's like, yeah, that could add, that could be a cool collab. That could add $150,000 in sales. And it's like, well, we're trying to grow sales by $40 million this year. So that's not going to get us very far that way. Like, it's great. We should do it. Somebody should do it, but I can't be spending my time on it. I have to be thinking, where are the swings that can add 10 or $20 million to top line, and make sure that we're hitting those points of leverage really hard.
Totally. I have a question for you guys. What's your sales channel mix of business, roughly? Distribution mix.
I'll go first. We're very omni-channel. We're almost 50-50. There was a period early on in the business where we were 99% Amazon, which obviously, like early on, everybody has risk that they don't want to have. And we had a very harrowing Black Friday week. We got our account suspended on Monday of Black Friday week and thought we were going to miss Christmas. And, it was like an existential, scary moment. And it really just made it clear that, like, hey, Amazon's a great channel, but if it's your only channel, you are asking for it. And so we've built it to where it's pretty much 50-50, and the two sides feed off of each other pretty well. So digitally, it's mostly our Amazon and D2C business. And then we, at this point, we kind of work with almost everybody that's a physical retailer.
Yeah, Mike, see, your 50-50 is different than mine, because out of the 50% that you consider online or digital, what percentage of that 50 is Amazon?
That's a great question. It's probably 70-ish% of the digital. So 70% of the 50. So probably 35% Amazon, 15% D2C.
Yeah, and then 50% wholesale.
Yeah. And then your wholesalers, are you also looking at like retail.com or like their.com as a part of that 50%? Or are you just putting like,
I can actually drop something. This is a helpful thing for everybody to know as they're kind of trying to figure out physical retail. All the physical retailers are really interested in growing their digital sales channels. Like Walmart, huge initiative right now. Same with Target. They're all trying to use them a little bit differently. Like I think Target uses their digital website to try and do BOPUS, the buy online, pick up in store. So they actually try to use it to drive more people to the store, which is interesting. Whereas Walmart, they're trying to use theirs. An interesting way they're trying to use theirs is they want to start getting more and more people when they order groceries for delivery or whatever to tack on items in that order that are hard lines or from other categories. So everybody's doing their digital strategy a little bit interestingly. But one of the things everybody's looking for is drop ship. If you're willing to drop ship, there's some volume to be had and there's a foot in the door. Now, obviously, you're taking on the inventory risk there, but it can be a way to start to get a retailer's attention that won't talk to you, is by being willing to do drop ship. At this point for us, most of what we're doing is it's out of their owned inventory, and we're actually selling it to them. Even with Walmart, things that aren't in store, we're selling it directly to them for Walmart.com. But there's even still like a Target, we might do a limited drop of like 1,000 of some kind of a cool holiday design that they'll push out to their .com customers. So it is a potential just for everybody who has digital expertise. The retailers are really serious about expanding, and there are really some opportunities, some cracks where you can kind of get in there if you have digital expertise, if you have the ability to drop ship and take advantage of that. One more thing worth mentioning, and this is, a nuance, we're not 3P with Amazon, we're 1P. So Amazon actually is on the wholesale side for us. We basically have D2C, and then we have a whole bunch of wholesale. And our experience with Amazon as a wholesale partner has been really, really good. They've been we've gotten a better deal by being a wholesale partner than by being a 3P partner. Every year when you're an Amazon 1P partner, they basically have a terms renegotiation. And this is usually when they'll come to you and say, hey, here's how we want to impact your margins or whatever. And basically what we've heard is generally they come back and they ask for more, just like any other retailer, unless you're growing. If you're producing growth, they kind of leave you alone. And because we've been growing, we have not had a fee increase, I think, in 3 years or something like that. I'm gonna get myself in trouble by saying this, but it's because we're producing a lot of growth and we're helping them grow the company. And so they're not going to mess with us when we're doing what they want us to do. And obviously 3P, there's been a ton of new fees. And interestingly, with 3P, they're pretty much forcing you to act more like a wholesale customer anyway. So things are changing on Amazon for sure.
Sean, what's your mix now? Because you've been making some decent strides in retail the last.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, my retail business has gone from basically $0 to some amount of money, but it's definitely not decent strides. Look, I'm very, very appreciative of the Best Buy partnership, but 50% of my revenue comes from our main US.com. 20% will come from Amazon and all of the various Amazon territories. 20% will come from our international.coms, and then 10% will come from wholesale. So,
which 20% internationally is great, Sean. I mean, like, that's worth calling out, that your international expansion, typically 17 to 25%, if you're hitting that kind of percentage in revenue from international, that's really, really healthy. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we've leaned into international to make sure that works. Like, we have localized inventory, localized Shopify. Like, if you are in Australia, we have a warehouse in Australia shipping you inventory, so it gets to you in a decent amount of time in local currency, fees and everything built in. So yeah, that's, I mean, the big initiative for us right now. And this kind of goes back to discounting. When I joined the company, our products were $55. We've gotten our average wallet price up to like $125, and I want to go higher. So like, I think we'll try to get our average wallet price up to $175 pretty soon, right? And you do that, and then it just gives you more room to discounting in the future, right? And we're doing that in the international market. So we just launched like a global store to serve Hong Kong, China, Korea, Japan, Singapore, and then eventually the Middle East. So I think international is the fastest growing part of our business, 300% plus year over year. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
I think it's interesting listening to everybody describe their mix. They're so different. So like, we kind of look at things as online, offline. Online is D2C Amazon. That's probably still, for the group, for both companies, I want to say it's like 60, 70% of the business. But if you were to go back 12 months ago, it probably would have been 95. So offline is growing very fast for us. And I bet you by next year it flips across both. So like, that's Costco Roadshow. That's what we're doing in the case business, which I haven't really talked about much, but I will soon. And then in Lomi, we've got a growing business. It's like very much B2B. So like, we sell to municipalities, we sell to condo and apartment developers and landlords. I even have in Lomi now, guys, I have a curbside pickup service. So like, I'm literally a waste management company. You just can't see it. It's like in certain markets. I know this is not D2C at all. I'm sorry. We provide a monthly service. Like, you get a machine, we pick up what comes out of the machine on demand, like Uber does. You just push a button in the app, and we come and get your dirt. But yeah, that's, our business is changing very fast, and we're just not. And the non D2C stuff is just so much more efficient that's where we're plowing most of our focus and our resources into. And I've been pulling, it's like money on chips on a board, right? We keep moving more and more chips over to other places that are just producing that asymmetric upside that, I love it. It's great.
I think the podcast started as like an e-com focused thing, but as our businesses just become more omni-channel, eventually you have to get good at these other channels. And it's crazy. You think it's going to switch the next like 12 months. So you're going to be a majority IRL. For Ridge to do that, we'd have to open hundreds of stores, and
Well,
maybe
yeah, we are. Like the on one, I can't get into it today because it's still very early. But like, there's some things that we're doing in both businesses that have like very big numbers. Yeah, I just can't get into it. It's going that way.
All right, teaser.
Yeah.
Upcoming episode. We'll
In like
find out
6 to 8 months, once we don't fuck it up, I'll come back and we'll talk about it.
But Sean, to your point, it depends on category, and there's some categories that it's not going to be possible to have a really strong physical presence unless you build it yourself. And then there's other ones like my category where it's easier. So it's just contextual to what you're doing. I mean, a great example here is apparel. The mass retailers generally, they want to make and white label as much of the apparel as they're selling as they possibly can for a number of different reasons. And so it's really difficult to break in, no matter how good your apparel brand is, to a Target or a Walmart right now.
Yeah. I mean, apparel has some different challenges. I talked to a PE group today and they said they will not invest in apparel anymore. They're like, there's no acquisition where, I think Cherene's the smartest one here, right? She's working in categories that that are good for acquisitions. So.
Well, she said something earlier that I really think is worth kind of calling out to everybody. One of the reasons to really know the numbers and to really understand what makes an excellent business, especially early on, is it helps you understand where to hitch your wagon. Like I don't know if this is exactly the point that you were making, but you got to see all these different businesses on the agency side. And you were like, oh, I get it. I get the ones that are likely to win and the likely to grow. And so it makes sense that like, hey, being able to really evaluate a business and not just join a business based on hype or based on the compensation package, but be able to say like, oh, this business is actually going somewhere because I know what these metrics mean. Like that's actually a really big skill in terms of your career and propelling you forward.
Yeah, 100%. It's like, is there consumption? Like, is there a propensity for someone to continue to repurchase after that first purchase? What are the margins? How does the market look? Is there competition? Is their product market fit? All those things kind of go into that. And then is there more than just a salary to be made? I think like that's another consideration. Like what's the output for my input?
Right.
Because especially early on, and people miss this, I probably didn't realize this at 22. In your 20s, the biggest thing that you get from a job, even more than the money, is the learning, because that ends up becoming the foundation of everything you're going to be able to accomplish, in your 30s, 40s, whatever. And so looking back now, I realize I would have gladly taken a job for much less money if I knew I was going to learn a lot more. It's basically like paying tuition. We pay a bunch of money in our a lot of people pay a lot of money to go to college because they understand, hey, trading money for knowledge is a good trade. And then you see people get into their careers and they forget that trade can be a really good trade if you do it the right way.
Well, I actually want to circle back. Were you talking specifically about, because you worked at mission-driven companies, you've worked in agencies where I'm sure like helped cut your teeth, but or is it an equity piece? Like what would it take to actually bring over somebody who's a high quality talent right now?
Yep. There's got to be financial incentive beyond just paycheck. And then, to Mike's point, there's got to be some kind of like experiential payout too.
Yeah, you used the word growth earlier, which I thought was good. You were like, I can't grow anymore. Like, it doesn't matter how successful the business is. I've reached I can't grow anymore. I can't be challenged anymore in this role. So no matter how fabulous the business is doing, I need to move on because I don't just want financial compensation. I want intellectual compensation or, whatever else. And this is kind of one of my big things is that people don't realize that compensation is like a 4-legged stool or like a 6-legged stool or something. And they tend to think that it's just finances. And like, no, that's one of the legs on the stool. And one of the ways to make your business more competitive and more successful is to compete across those other vectors, because most businesses aren't. They're just thinking about how much they pay people. And so if you're actually being deliberate about like, hey, yeah, you come here, you're going to be able to go and start a company. You're going to learn what it takes to go and start and run your own company. You know, you're going to be in an environment where you're really encouraged. You're going to have financial upside if the company does really well on the equity side. Those type of things really can make a difference, where you take a holistic view towards it.
And I think you tied everything. Oh man, sorry. You go.
No, you go.
I was going to say, I think you tied it all together. You know, earlier I said I wouldn't have left Bobby. I'm like, it sounded like a sweet, easy gig, but you know, Mustangs want to run, right? So like, if you're like, no, I want to learn, I want to perform, I want to grow, I want to push this, you're like, no, I'm limited right now, I can't really grow here. And the opposite is sloths want to sleep. And sometimes I'm very much a sloth and I just want to be chilling. So no, you can end it. What was your point?
I do want to retire. But I think like, to wrap it up, it's like thinking about team and like people on our team too. I worked with, actually Jason's VP of HR, Penny Yoda at Common Thread Collective. She was like an executive coach of mine. And it's so true that people, even like our own teams, people working and are motivated by what we're doing, people want like self-actualization. And like, that's something that, she's actually coached me on. It's like, how do you it's not only about the financial incentive. It's not only about, you know, like what you're learning, but like, how do you like actually have these like direct conversations with people and be a transparent leader who can actually like develop people and make them reach that like self-actualization in their role. And it's like a really hard thing to do because it requires having really hard conversations. But I think about that all the time. Like myself is this like, you know, overeager, like I want to achieve great things and like do really cool stuff and like work on big stuff. Like everyone on my team feels the same way and they want it. So it's like, how do you continue to foster that environment for people? I mean, like that's what I would say is one of the big, we can talk about like revenue, tactics, growth, everything, but it's like none of that exists without the players on the team. And it's really hard to be that transparent leader that people want to follow. And I think like that's one thing that I'll highlight in all of this is like you have to have that or no one will want to run up the hill with you.
That's a lot.
I'll tie this all together with a really simple thought. If your organization is growing faster than you are as its leader, then it's going to either implode or the growth will stall out. Growing leaders, growing people naturally produce growing organizations that are more successful. It's that simple. And so part of how you actually really conquer growth is that you don't just focus on how do we grow externally, but you focus on how do you grow all the people in the building and their capabilities and how they're thinking about the business. And then not surprisingly, that naturally manifests itself in more ideas and more growth in the running of the business.
Mm.
I mean, that even ties back to earlier, like the flexible leadership, right? Like that's, I think it's a theme tied throughout the entire episode, but what's up, everybody? Thank you for listening to the Operators Podcast. I hope you learned something because I did. Chaurene educated us. Special thank you for her. Follow her as Chaurene. Is it Aubert?
Chaurene Aubert.
Okay,
or Chaurene Aubert, if you're fancy.
I thought it was Albert. My bad. Chaurene Aubert. Follow that on Twitter. Check out Fulfill, Sendlane, Northbeam, 3 SaaS softwares I continue to use every day. And dude, thank you for being here. You're the 5th bestie. We'll have you on again soon.
Thank you, Sean.